Hello, I'm Catherine Maguire. Welcome to the Soul Alchemist Podcast. If you are on a journey of personal or spiritual growth, you are in the right place. It is my desire to offer you an infusion of inspiration every week to carry you on your journey. So, thank you for joining me. Thank you for coming along. I am really happy to report that this cold I've had is finally gone and my voice is finally clear. And oh my goodness, what a relief. I hate that congested feeling. And it has really made me appreciate my voice this week and also kind of caused me to take a bit of a walk down memory lane because I've had quite a journey with my voice over the years. And I wanted to share it with you this morning because that's what's present for me in my universe this week. But also, I thought it might act as some inspiration for you if there are places in your life where you are holding back or where you're constricted or where you haven't fully stepped into yourself. So, quite some time ago now, probably when I was around 10 or 11, my mum decided to send myself and my sister to piano lessons. I have no earthly idea why she did that because neither of us asked to go to piano lessons. We had no piano in our house. It wasn't part of our universe. I didn't have a friend who had a piano. So I don't know why she sent us to piano lessons. But anyway, off we went to the Crilly School of Music in Drogheda. Miss Crilly was the archetypal spinster dressed in tweed two-piece music teacher, and she had this little music school, a really successful music school actually in the town near where we lived. And my mum sent us off, and we didn't have Miss Crilly for lessons, which I was quite happy about because she was quite now serious. She appeared at that age, she appeared quite fierce to me. We had one of the younger teachers, which I was quite happy about. And we went and we did our piano lessons and we go to my grand's house and practice on her piano. And then after a while, my dad bought an organ, an electric organ, and we used to practice on that. And then Christmas came around, or kind of the period before Christmas, and Miss Crilly, every week when you were doing your lessons, Miss Crilly did her rounds. So she would go around to all the different kind of rooms where the lessons were going on and stick her head in the door and see how you were getting on and talk to the teachers and ask the teacher how you were getting on. And this week she came around, stuck her head in the door, and she said there was going to be a Christmas concert and everyone was asked to come and participate in the choir. So I was really excited about this because my dad sang in the church choir every Sunday and he used to go to choir practice during the week. But on a Sunday morning, I'd go with him to church and we'd go up the gallery steps together and into the gallery. And I loved the gallery because the church always seemed quite kind of constricted and kind of dark and kind of heavy in energy. Where in the gallery, you're up high, you could look out over the church and it was really bright and airy. And my dad and the choir used to sing and they would give me some of the sheet music and I'd sing along and I was delighted and I loved it. And I really loved Christmas time because I loved the hymns that were in Latin. I loved the sound of Latin being sung. Maybe it was a kind of a, I don't know, an energy pulse to life in Italy at a much future time where, Italian's based on Latin in a large extent. But I loved those Italian or those Latin hymns. So Miss Curly sticks her head in the door, said there's going to be a choir. I'm like, amazing, this is fantastic. So we went um, to the first, practice of an evening, myself and my sister and the other people, the other kids from the music school. And she starts leading us through some of the Christmas songs. And quite quickly into it, Miss Crilly tells me to be quiet because I'm out of tune. Now, I never knew I was out of tune. I wasn't even really sure what out of tune was, but I knew by the way she looked at me and pointed at me, this was not a good thing. So I stayed quiet. And obviously, I was upset enough about it because I don't remember ever participating in the Christmas choir. And I think I probably left piano lessons after that because I don't have a memory of going much longer after that. And that moment stayed with me into my adult life to the point where I didn't really sing. Became very self-conscious about my voice. And even when I would try to sing, because I had really kind of stern look and consternation image in my head, and her telling me to be quiet, that I was so afraid of being out of tune that invariably when I would sing, I would go out of tune because the fear stopped me from opening my voice. And this went on all into my adult life. And when I went to college, I met an amazing friend called Aidan, who is still my friend to this day. And Aidan was mad about music. He knew singers and things. I had no idea. He was from Dublin. I was from the country. He knew all these amazing singers, these amazing bands, these amazing vocalists. And he knew I really enjoyed music. So he would share music with me. And then maybe at lunch break or coffee break, he'd put something on and I'd start to sing along, and he'd go, Kate, you're out of tune. So again, close my voice. So I loved the music, but that reinforcement that I was singing out of tune. And then I left college and I met who is now my ex-husband. And the same thing happened. I'd be, in the house, I'd sing and he'd say to me, Kate, you're out of tune. And reinforced again that I was out of tune. And then the more self-conscious I became about it, the more out of tune I would be when I would try to sing, because I was afraid of hitting a note and hitting it out of tune. So of course I would hit it out of tune. And on the cycle went and on, it was perpetuated. And then one day I just got a bit pissed off with everybody telling me that I was out of tune. And I got a bit pissed off with not being able to sing the way I wanted to sing. So I thought, I'm going to do something about this. And this was pre-internet, just so you know. So I did what we all did back then, was I got out the yellow pages and I went through the yellow pages for a singing school. And I found this singing school. It was called the Bel Canto School of Music. And in part of the little blurb, whatever it said, it's something about it spoke to me about helping people find their voice. So I rang up, I made an appointment, and off I went. And if you live in Dublin, or if you've been to Dublin, there's a part of Dublin called North Great George's Street, and there's these beautiful old Georgian houses. And the School of Music was in one of these beautiful old Georgian houses. And when you went in, there was this huge room on the ground floor that was probably 2 rooms that had been opened. And there was this man there called Frank Merriman. And Frank Merriman had studied opera. He'd trained opera singers. He'd also helped people like Sinead O'Connor and Bono find their voice. But he was particularly skilled at helping people who thought they couldn't sing. Because Frank's belief was that everyone could sing, your voice was just stuck. And he had this amazing process for getting you to sing. So in this big room on the ground floor, there was a mark up the middle of the carpet. And the reason that mark was there was Frank's teaching method was this. He stood side by side with you and you walked the length of this room. And when you got to the end, you turn around. But as you walked, he sang a line of a song. And then your job was to sing the line of the song again. And he'd give you a line of a song and you'd sing the line of the song. And then you were watching to make sure you didn't walk into the wall. So you turned around and you just walked the length of this room for 30 or 40 minutes, up and down, singing the next line of the song that he gave you. He never once said to you, you're out of tune. He never paid attention to whether you were in tune or not. What he did say was, watch out for the wall and maybe breathe a little deeper into your belly. And because you are concentrating on walking and not walking into the wall, obviously, your body relaxed. And because your body relaxed, your throat relaxed. And because your throat relaxed, your voice opened up. And as I walked that floor with Frank Merriman, I heard my voice come out. And over the weeks, it got more confident and it got more open. And this whole thing of being out of tune just went away. So he never taught me to sing in tune. He just relaxed me so that fear and that fright in my body left. And I did that with Frank for quite some time until I felt confident in my voice. And off I went about my life. And then about 10 years ago, I could feel something in my voice that wanted to just expand some more. I'd feel like there was something more in there. And this time we had the internet. And I went looking at the internet and I found this woman called Chloe Goodchild, who has this process called the naked voice. And Chloe is the same, that everyone can sing. Your voice is in there. So I went and I booked some sessions with Chloe. And she was in the UK. I was in Italy at this time. And Chloe trained in India and different places. So she's a really interesting perception on sound and voice and music. And I told her my story. And I told her my story about Miss Critty's music school and then opening up my voice with Frank. But I said to her, I feel like there's something still more in there. I feel there's more space in there. There's something more that wants to come out. And I told her about my story about singing out of tune. And I said, I think there's still a bit of that. I don't feel fully free in my voice still. And she said something really interesting to me, which is the scale we know in the Western world, so the do, re, mi, fa, sol, is only one scale. And we think it's in tune because our ear has been trained to hear that. So that's what we associate being in tune with. And our music is based around that scale. But she said to me, in other parts of the world, there are different scales. And some of those scales would sound discordant to you because your ear has not been trained to hear them and recognize them as in tune. And that blew my mind. That blew my mind. And she said to me, the places that you're wobbling and that you're a bit afraid of, she said, think of them as doorways. Think of them as doorways into another part of yourself that you haven't walked through and explored yet. So she said, maybe those places you don't have confidence in your voice are actually possibilities, opportunities to meet a part of yourself if you're willing to go there. So I started doing these lessons with Chloe, and she'd sing and she'd give me something to sing and I'd sing it back. And she was interested in the places where I held back, where I constricted, which made to my ear sound off. And she was like, there, let's do that again. And when I would do that, that holding, that tightening, that in my ear made me out of tune, she would stop and pause and get me to breathe into that and actually give that voice, give that out of tune space, that out of tune note voice, and expand it and open it up and go into it fully. And when I would do that, something amazing would happen. It's like pieces of myself would fall back into place. It was alchemy. It was alchemy. And I worked with Chloe for a while, and it really did transform me. And it really did transform my connection to my voice, but it also transformed my connection to myself. It's like I took back ownership of parts of myself. And in it, realized also I don't fit into the scale, the pre-prescribed scale, not just in music, in life. I think differently to people. I think differently to a lot of people. I, live my life in a different way. That is the way, it's my tune, it's my way. It's what's in harmony with me. And when I do that, it feels good. And when I try to, fall into the harmony, into the tune, into the scale, into the beat of someone else's life, that feels discordant to me. And I feel discombobulated. That's how I feel out of tune. So when I'm true to my inner tune, true to my inner melody, I feel in harmony in myself. So that's what I want to offer you today. Where are you living your life to someone else's tune, to someone else's harmony, to someone else's song? Or where are you holding back? Where are you constricting? Where are you, pulling yourself in? Where are you afraid to go there because you may be out of sync with someone else? And my offering to you today is, how could you maybe step into that space? How could you see it as a doorway, a possibility, and maybe step into it and expand? So maybe it's something you're doing in your life or your relationship or your work or your own creative pursuits. Where are you holding back? Where are you holding back, and where are you trying to fit in to someone else's preconceived notion of what is the way to do something. And how could you, instead of trying to fit in, how could you expand into the rhythm, into the frequency, into the note, into the harmony that is you? So I invite you to explore that this week. Explore that. Find your own tune. Find your own voice in whatever way that means for you. Find your own artistry. Find your own creativity. Find your own way of being in the world. Because often when we feel out of sorts with the world, it's we're trying to fit into a world in a way that doesn't fit for us. We're out of harmony. But when we come into harmony with ourselves, everything falls into place. And that's why for me this morning is as I'm giving thanks of my cold being gone and my voice being back, I'm also recognizing the full circle moment, of this podcast, of offering my voice to you in its imperfections, in its full spectrum, in its skipping a word, repeating a word, pauses maybe where there's not supposed to be any, or, they're, taking a moment to think, whatever it is, in the glorious spectrum and the glorious, symphony of my voice, offering it to you in a way that may not be perfect, but feels so good to me to share. So this week, go share yourself in whatever way feels good and whatever way feels true. And know that if you don't fit in wherever you are, there's a scale somewhere else that's more true, more authentic. And maybe the place you're out of sync and out of harmony is where you were never meant to fit in to begin with. You are meant to expand and find yourself in a different way somewhere else. So have a gorgeous, glorious, magical, harmonious week. Let me know what you find out. I look forward to hearing it. Slán, agus ciao.